Bluff City Media presents the Two Buck Sports Show with your hosts, Rusty Buckets and Uncle Buck. Now, let's get to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to your Wednesday edition of the Two Buck Sports Show. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets, as always, coming to you live from East Memphis with my Today is the One Buck Show to intro as Uncle Buck got called out into some work. Sorry for the bad joke there, but life happens sometimes, and it couldn't have happened at a better time because we got a super special episode for y'all today that I'm really excited about. Had an opportunity last night to interview Alex Golden of Setting the Pace Pod. It's a Pacers podcast that is really, really well done. We are super excited for y'all to hear this. Like, you talk about a guy that has a perfect podcast name, Setting the Pace, like, couldn't be better. Shout out Kenny and King Meeks in the comments. Like, Kenny, I appreciate King Meeks. First of all, I appreciate the puns here. Like, they are absolutely just in the comments. And Kenny is right. We've replaced Uncle Buck with a blank space. It's this window over here, and suddenly the room IQ has doubled. But anyway, I digress. But Setting the Pace is the perfect Pacers podcast name. So big flowers to Alex for that. But you talk about a guy that's just a hoops head that loves to talk small market basketball, that loves the Pacers. Unfortunately, he's a Colts fan, so like that's kind of a bummer. But we were able to work around that and talk about the Pacers. You know, StreamYard is heavy on Wi-Fi, so I do apologize that the video is a little glitchy, but the sound is perfect. I crap out in the middle, but I come back. Don't worry. I don't leave Uncle Buck to his own devices because we know he needs adult supervision as well as multiple phone books so that y'all can see him on screen. I got to get my jokes in while he's not here. But this is a really, really in-depth, good interview about the history of kind of the who the Pacers are now, how they got here through Rick Carlisle and trading for Hallie and kind of building this thing as a small market team that kind of helps give me hope that the Memphis Grizzlies can do something similar. So I don't want to waste any time. I want to dive right into it, but I do want to talk to you about Ounce of Hope before we get too deep into it. Again, Ounce of Hope has chosen to partner with us Knuckleheads here at Bluff City Media, and we couldn't be more excited for what they bring to the table. As Memphis's premier cannabis dispensary, Ounce of Hope can get you taken care of with whatever you need. From mushroom vitality gummies, my personal favorite are the THC seltzers. Love the Peach Buzz. Really love the Cherry Jane. It's more of a black cherry. I'm not a big artificial cherry guy at all, but the Cherry Jane is 10 out of 10. Cannot recommend enough. But I'm also really big on the Rebound capsules. I take these every morning while I'm sitting here doing our shows, getting ready for the daily grind. I pop one of these capsules to help with that brain fog and that recovery as I wake up in the mornings. And the CBD and curcumin are perfectly blended for that. Cannot recommend Ounce of Hope enough. Code BluffCity gets you 15% off your first order. Cannot be combined with other discounts and may only be used one time. But super excited about our partnership there. So, guys, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to punch play on this video. Hang with the video. Again, it's a little grainy and glitchy. Again, StreamYard is just heavy on Wi-Fi, so it happens. No big deal, but the audio is on point, and you don't want to miss Alex in this interview. Guy is just an absolute stud. And we really appreciated his time last night. So I'll get out of the way. That's enough of me. See y'all on the other side. Oh, it's coming.
Conventional medicine? Check out Ounce of Hope, a Memphis-based dispensary with 2 local stores in the Sanderland Center and on South Cooper Street. You can get all the products you need in a location convenient to you. Each store offers an intentional shopping experience with dedicated bud tenders to answer all of your questions, from product selection and mushroom blends to our personal favorite, the Delta 9 seltzers. You gotta try the Peach Buzz. Try Ounce of Hope at either one of their 2 Memphis stores or at www.ounceofhope.com for convenient product shipped right to your door. Use the promo code BluffCity for 15% off any order, excluding sale items. Cannot be used in conjunction with other promotions or discounts. One use per customer.
Welcome back to the 2 Buck Sports Show, live here on your lunch break every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. Central. As you look on your screen, we have another honorary buck. I'm going to welcome into the show the third buck for today, Mr. Alex Golden of Setting the Pace, which Alex, like, first of all, 10 out of 10 podcast name, covering the Pacers, setting the pace, like GOAT level name. Alex, how are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. I won't lie, though. We don't like bucks in Indiana. So, being a third buck, got to make sure that we do address that it's not the Milwaukee Bucks that we are talking about here.
No, sir, not around here.
We are not
here.
any way associated with the Milwaukee Bucks. My niece and nephew call me Uncle Buck and have for the last 11 years. And he is Buckets. That's been his nickname forever. That's basically the only thing I've ever called him. And so that's where it came from, not the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll get that out of the way and save your home address. Nobody can go egg your house now.
There we go. Yeah, I was a little bit worried when they said that we got a third buck here. I was like, wait a second. I know Giannis needed some help. I don't think I'm the guy to help him right now.
No, Giannis is where the rest of us are. And watching your Indiana Pacers in the finals, man, like, first of all, man, like, we'll get to kind of your backstory here in a minute, but is this like a Cinderella run, or did y'all believe this was happening all along?
I mean, it's hard to say it's a Cinderella run when they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but I do think that it was probably a little bit surprising the way that Boston kind of flamed out to New York, Jason Tatum going down in Game 4, and they were actually going to lose that game regardless. So the fact that New York was able to go up 3-1 and have 2 20-point comeback wins over Boston, I think, that was kind of surprising. And then, of course, Cleveland had a really good regular season, but for the Pacers to beat them in 5 games and win 3 games on the road, I mean, the Pacers have just been playing great basketball. They've been playing – they have the second best record since January 1st, right? So this is a team that's been playing great, and they've finally got healthy. So I'm not surprised that they're here based on the schedule and how everything kind of played out, but it is still surreal to see that they're in the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. And then the way they won Game 1, I mean, it's one of those things where even if they don't win the series, like that Game 1, coming back from being down the entirety of the game just to lead for 0.3 of a second and win the game is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's absolutely historic, the run that Halliburton's on. And we are obviously Memphis Grizzlies fans, and the smallest market in the NBA is Memphis. And obviously Indianapolis and the Indiana Pacers are a small market team. You'd never expect anybody to believe in you, especially, like you said, what Eastern Conference Finals last year, everybody wanted to poke holes in it the whole way because of injuries the whole way. And to do it again this year, I feel like the tide may have turned a little bit, and like everybody's kind of jumping on board and believing, especially compared to last year. Did y'all just felt like y'all were here the whole time? Like, this is what we do 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that last year you can poke some holes in it. They did get some lucky breaks along the way. No Giannis. The Knicks start getting injured as you're making that run against them in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And then, of course, Halliburton gets hurt in the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston last year in Game 2. But Halliburton was never really fully healthy last year either, and the team had never had that experience. I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys that had never been in the playoffs before. So for their first run, especially together to be an Eastern Conference Finals run, even though it was a sweep, it's like, hey, this team's actually got something here. It felt like the front office all, preseason, off-season long, they were kind of like trying not to get people's hopes up too much. I don't necessarily know if they thought this is a championship-level team, let alone an NBA Finals team. So I think that they're probably ahead of schedule. I mean, they're in year 3 of a rebuild since they got Halliburton a couple of years ago. So they've definitely just kind of found a way to keep getting there, but they just play such a frenetic pace. It's why we were laughing about Setting the Pace being a perfect name for the podcast. It's just like this team plays with so much pace, and they just beat teams in so many different ways. And even if they might not be the most talented, right, they find ways to just wear you down throughout a 7-game series. And so I feel like the way this team has just improved so much defensively from last year to this year, It's just incredible. So I'm not surprised they're here. I think that it's not what I expected, but with how the schedule is kind of set up, when you look at like Milwaukee, Cleveland, New York, if you told me those were the three teams they have to go through, I'd say I think they have a chance.
Yeah, agreed. And they proved that. And so we'll get to Hallie in a minute because I feel like he's like who everybody wants to talk about. But the guy I've been most impressed with, and the first couple of games was a little bit rough, has been Pascal Siakam. Like he earned that Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Talk a little bit about what Siakam has meant to this team, just with that championship pedigree and the edge that he brings. I have seen that video of him in the preseason, in that preseason workout, probably 30 times. I've watched it just over and over and over again, just to hear that like rah-rah. Like talk about what Siakam has meant to this team as that like second option.
Yeah, leadership, experience, winning a championship, and just understanding what it takes to get there. And kind of his whole message was like, after we won in 2019, I thought we'd be back here several times. And the Raptors never make it back to the NBA championship again, NBA finals again. And so he's basically saying, don't take this for granted. It's hard to get back here. You never know when you'll get back here again. I mean, it's been 25 years for the Pacers since they were last there. And so I think that he just has a really good understanding of what it takes to win at the highest level. And everybody just kind of leans, they hang their hat on what he brings to the table. And then you just talk about how he's played this year. Last year, I felt like the guy was not a good three-point shooter. I felt like he was still trying to figure out how the Pacers' pace was. But you give him 82 games to figure out how to play at this pace, to get himself in shape over the summer, to play a little bit faster than maybe he's normally used to playing. And then you let him work on his three-point shot. I mean, the guy's shooting incredible from three this year, which really makes him an inside-out presence. And I think he just is very good at hunting mismatches. When there's a mismatch on him, if the Pacers can give him the ball, it feels like a guaranteed bucket. And then defensively last year, I felt like he was a little bit sluggish at times, kind of had his feet stuck in the mud. And while he still doesn't do great at screen navigation, gets kind of hung up in screens a little too easy, I feel like for the most part, he's been much more flexible defensively this year, where he's able to guard different positions and able to put himself in the right spot. So I just think when you have a guy like Pascal Siakam, it really just raises the floor of your team, but also the ceiling of your team. The Pacers have desperately needed a starting power forward since David West was on the roster. They had Thad Young for a couple of years, but he was more of like a defensive-minded guy that wouldn't really give you much offensively. But Pascal Siakam kind of finally steps into that David West role, as we saw that team back in the day make it to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Heatles multiple times. So I think he's better than David West just because he's a little bit different in how he can play. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it was very close for who should have won finals, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, but he had 3 30-point games, and every single game he had 30 points they won. So hard to argue that, but I felt like the way they were able to utilize him against some of those matchups, I mean, he made teams pay almost every single series.
And it's really nice when you got a guy like Pascal Siakam that, doesn't necessarily navigate screen defense well and can kind of get stuck in the mud, that you've got an anchor behind him like Miles Turner. And Miles Turner is a guy that I've always coveted. I know Memphis Grizzlies fans, since Marc Gasol, really, it's kind of like we've always had these plotting bigs. We went from Valanciunas to Steven Adams. And so I've always dreamt of a guy like Miles Turner. And for some reason, he was always in trade talks. You're talking about like y'all are in year 3 of a rebuild, and the years prior, it was always kind of like, who are we selling now? What are we doing? How are we getting picked? How are we building? I thought Miles Turner was always in those talks, and it's really nice to see a guy like Miles Turner figure it out with the team that drafted him, a team that he's been with his whole career, and he's really shined this whole postseason run.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable because I agree with you. Like there was a stretch there, and I was definitely on the bandwagon of they got to trade Miles Turner. Like this is a guy that he was kind of in his feelings a little bit, especially when they had Domantas Sabonis on the roster because he was playing more of the 4. There was even a time where they actually had him go, I think, during the summer and work out with Kevin McHale to learn how to be more of a back to the basket big as a 5. And then he comes into training camp and they're like, we want you to stand in the corner and be a stretch 4. So Sabonis can do all this down low stuff. Right. And so he's like, why did I waste all my time in the offseason working on down low stuff? I'm going to be in the corner the whole time. And so he was frustrated. Pacers tried trading him a few different times. I'm sure you guys recall when they almost had a deal done with the Boston Celtics to acquire Gordon Hayward in a sign and trade deal at one point. The Celtics refused to match that because they didn't think Hayward would actually go somewhere else. He ends up signing with the Charlotte Hornets, and they do a sign and trade there just so they can make a deal kind of work and figure that one out. But yeah, I just think with Miles, they also signed DeAndre Ayton to a max contract offer sheet that the Phoenix Suns didn't match. about 3 years ago. So
what does the great American philosopher Garth Brooks once say? I thank God for unanswered prayers.
yes,
Because there is nothing worse than
telling you.
DeAndre Ayton.
I'm telling you, I think. Well, here's what I will say. I was on the bandwagon of if they're not going to keep Turner, I think Ayton could be a really nice fit with Halliburton. I just think he needs a better coach because at that point, Monty Williams and him had been butting heads so much. I felt like Carlisle would get the best out of DeAndre Ayton. I still believe that to this day, but I don't know if it would have the same impact as what Miles Turner has done. So just to go back to your point, like this guy is one of the best shot blockers in the league. He's a great 3-point shooter. He's really displayed that at times, especially in the postseason where he can be very impactful. So he's been here for 10 years. Like, it's super emotional. And if you hear him in the Eastern Conference post-game celebration with Ernie Johnson, he starts kind of like his voice starts breaking. He's getting super emotional talking to the crowd. And you can almost feel like the goosebumps when you watch it. If you're a Pacers fan, it almost makes you want to get teary-eyed because it's like, what a journey this guy's been on. Like, there's been 4 to 5 years straight of him getting in the trade rumors, and nobody's really expecting him to be here long-term. And all he wants to do is be a Pacer. And like, how many times do you hear someone say, "Hey, I want to stay in a small market and help,"
right.
we
We can relate.
Team.
We
can relate.
get it.
Our cult hero is Tony Allen.
Yeah. It's remarkable. It's really cool to see, and I'm really happy that the front office, they didn't give up on him. And I think the big thing here is Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle said that he met with him in Dallas when he got the job, and it was Carlisle that kind of pushed the bonus out for Halliburton. Like, he was like, "We got to get Halliburton," and he really thought that Miles Turner's ability to block shots and shoot threes was unique. And a little fun story for you guys: Tyson Chandler, a center that won the championship with the Dallas Mavericks back in 2011. He actually did some off-season workouts with Miles Turner this previous season, and I'm not sure if Carlisle had anything to do with that, but I do believe Carlisle knows that Tyson and them talk some. So I thought that was really cool just to kind of see that connection there, especially knowing Rick coached them both, and this is a chance at a championship right here for the Pacers.
Yeah,
we stand for Rick Carlisle on this podcast. We call him again, Wi-Fi here is kind of spotty, but we stand for Rick Carlisle on this podcast. Like, get Halliburton bonus, change the face of the franchise.
Okay. We're gonna let Rusty figure that out for a second. We're gonna let him figure that out. He's gonna reboot and hold on. All right, we're gonna let him reboot real quick, and he'll hop back in. But yeah, we talked on our show. I went on and on about Rick Carlisle too, and then we'll talk about Rick Carlisle, and then we'll talk about Tyrese Halliburton, because he's just been amazing. But in Game 1, in particular, I thought Rick Carlisle was amazing. You saw vet coach touch. In ESPN showed him talking to his team in the first half when they were scoring. Turning the ball over 20 times, just like, "Hey, don't do this, don't do this," coaching them. And then when it came down to crunch time, you make the comeback, not white knuckling that and just not calling the timeout, just letting them go, playing with the pace that they're typically used to playing with. And it resulted in a Tyrese Halliburton game winner once again. Rick Carlisle is just, to me, has been the star of the series so far.
Yeah, I think the Pacers have got this far because of Rick Carlisle. If they had a different coach, I don't think they'd be in the NBA Finals, to be honest with you. I think this is a guy that, number one, empowers his players to make great decisions, but he also just knows how to make the right adjustments to counter whatever the other team is doing. And so I have so much respect for Rick Carlisle. I think he might go down as, if not the greatest coach in Pacers history, as the second greatest coach behind Bobby Slick Leonard, who won 529 games and 3 ABA titles for the team. But I just think he's been a part of every finals run they've had, and every Eastern Conference finals run they've really had too. So aside from some of the stuff they had there and with Frank Vogel, but for the most part, like, he's just been such a sound voice for this team, and he's really proven his worth. And you're right, there's been a lot of conversations where you talk about, oh, how did Rick Carlisle? Why did he not call a timeout for this situation? There's been, like, fans were talking about this last year. There was a time where he did not call a timeout, and the Pacers ended up not getting a good look or something like that. And everyone's like, "Why did you call a timeout?" He's like, "Well, if I call a timeout, then I can't set up, or the other team can set up their defense." Well, it happened earlier this year against the Lakers, and Tyrese Halliburton was pulled out for defensive purposes. They get the original stop on the Lakers, and then Halliburton's sitting at the scorer's table. Carlisle doesn't call a timeout to get Halliburton back into the game to get a shot off. The Pacers end up having a very bad possession. The Lakers get the rebound. They come down the court. They miss the shot. However, Jarris Walker is in his second year, was responsible for guarding LeBron James. He doesn't box him out. LeBron tips it in at the buzzer. The Lakers win by 1 point, and everyone's questioning, why didn't Rick Carlisle sub in Tyrese Halliburton? Why didn't he call timeout? But now you've seen it 4 times in the playoffs where the ball has been in Tyrese Halliburton's hands. The Pacers have not called a timeout, and Halliburton delivers in the clutch every single time. And so I think at this point, you realize, yeah, maybe there is a time when you should call a timeout, but for the most part, it has benefited Indiana to not call them. And so that is where Rick Carlisle is what Tyrese Halliburton says, a savant. And he just has such a great feel for the game, for his players, and Tyrese Halliburton is already the most clutch player in Pacers history. And this might be the greatest clutch run we've ever seen in NBA history as well.
I don't think you can argue that. I don't think you can argue that. You know, talking about the fouling thing, the Grizzlies saw both sides of it. Taylor Jenkins got crucified, and rightly so. We were up 3, and he took a timeout and allowed Houston. He took a timeout as Desmond Bane was pulling a 3 that he made after the whistle. And then Houston just like, okay, well, since they gave us a chance to talk about it, we're just going to foul.
Yeah.
And you lose. And then the next time you play Houston, like 2 weeks later, you got the same situation in which he doesn't call a timeout, but the referee issues a timeout anyway, just like this phantom timeout call, just like the worst. He ended up winning that game. But yeah, I'm very much pro. I think very few coaches in the NBA matter to the degree in which their fan base thinks they matter. Rick Carlisle is one of those people, though. Like, he is a truly elite coach, and he does make an absolute difference.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Halliburton, Rusty, welcome back. And you're
muted.
Jeez.
But your video looks a lot better.
Killing it. So welcome back to me. Sorry about all the Wi-Fi issues here, but yeah, Halliburton, man, like, he has been on run of all runs, right? We've got, ever since he was voted most overrated player in the NBA by about 9 players, he took that, as MJ said, I took that personally, and it's been on a historic run. Talk a little bit about what Halliburton has developed into since coming over from Sacramento.
I mean, my goodness. I don't think anybody maybe saw this with what you saw in Sacramento. I mean, he was kind of playing second fiddle to De'Aaron Fox. Probably wasn't that big of a household name being out in Sacramento, who doesn't really get a lot of coverage anyway. But then you kept hearing, could the Kings trade Tyrese Halliburton? You know, what could Tyrese Halliburton bring? And so, you know, I think Tyrese has said it a couple different times. He thought he was going to get traded to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons because that was kind of the big thing going around at the time. And then his agent said, I think you're going to Indiana. He's like, Indiana? Like, he had no idea Indiana was on the radar. And so he was a little bit hurt. Like, he came from Sacramento to Indiana like, man, this sucks. Like, why did I get traded? I wanted to help bring Sacramento out of, you know, the hellhole they've been in for so many years.
He was rookie of the year, right? Sacramento. Am I misremembering that?
I think it might have been Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I think he was second.
Or LaMelo Ball.
Okay.
I can't remember who won rookie of the year.
He was up there. He had a really good rookie year.
Yeah, I think he made all rookie first team. So maybe that's what you're thinking. But I mean, he had a good rookie season, but I just think in Sacramento, you're kind of under the radar. Nobody really knows who you are. And so, like, the more and more rumors were popping up, the Pacers could potentially trade Sabonis for Halliburton or even De'Aaron Fox at one point. You know, you kind of start looking into them to see what they are. And you're like, okay, guy's got a goofy shot. Like, what can he really do? And so all of a sudden the Pacers get him, and it's just like they scored 40 points in the first quarter that he plays. So you're like, holy cow, like, the Pacers can play offense like this. We've been seeing this slow double bigs with Sabonis and Turner and Malcolm Brogdon, and let's just slow everything down and be a really half-court team. And all of a sudden you're playing fast. You're watching Buddy Hield shoot threes quick and the shot clock, and it's like totally different brand of basketball. But wow, this is exciting. And so you just kind of see him grow. He makes an all-star team, I believe, the next season. Then the following year, he's a starter for the NBA All-Star game. Probably could have won MVP if Dame Lillard didn't try to take over the show. And Doc Rivers was the coach at the time, giving Dame all the touches. And Halliburton, being the young gun, didn't want to, like, overstep his boundaries, even though it was in Indiana for the All-Star game. So I just feel like, you know, at that point, with the Pacers run they had last year in the in-season tournament to get to the championship and lose to the Lakers in that championship, that was their first, like, real, like, win or go home type of pressure they had. And so it was kind of cool to see them kind of adapt to that. And at that point, they didn't have Pascal Siakam. They still had Bruce Brown starting for him, who they ended up trading for Pascal Siakam later. So I just think the way Halliburton's grown, like, we already knew he can, like, pass the ball, you know, out the wazoo. Like, this is a great passer. He can score in a variety of ways. The biggest knock on Halliburton is the consistency, right? And you'll see it all over social media, all over ESPN. It's like this guy can put up 25 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, zero turnovers, and 4 steals in one game. And then the next game, he'll come out, shoot 2 of 10, 8 points, 7 assists. It's like, why did he disappear? And then they'll say, I got to be better for the next game. And then usually he is better for the next game.
Right.
But it's just like one of those things where he's just like not consistently great. And I think that is the frustrating part about Halliburton is, he can get to these certain levels, but he just always plays at like the mindset of, I'm going to do what's best for the team. So if they're going to send 2 guys to me, I'm not going to force a jump shot over 2 guys or try to drive into traffic and pull up and shoot a floater. Like, that's just not his game. It's like, hey, if I can drive to the nail and they're going to help out and there's a guy open for 3, I'm going to kick it out to the guy for 3. Now, if he makes it look like a hero, if he misses it, well, I'm not shooting the ball enough. So I just think that at some point, he's got to be more aggressive as a scorer. I think at certain times, I think the criticism is fair to a certain degree, but he's probably one of the hardest players to fairly discuss in terms of what he should be doing and what he shouldn't be doing, because it's a pass first point guard. He's not really a score first point guard, but because he's the face of the franchise, everyone thinks he has to be the score first guy. And that's not really who he is. But when he scores 20 plus points per game or more, I think they're like 31-4. So
we get that. We get that here in Memphis. We've got Jaren Jackson Jr., who is a score first perimeter big who doesn't rebound, and he gets crucified for not rebounding. And literally people are trying to ship him out for peanuts because he's this terrible NBA player. When the reality is that's just not his game. Halliburton's a pass first guy. Jaren is a perimeter big, but we could go back in the history of the Grizzlies and talk about frustrating players from Jaren Jackson Jr. to Marc Gasol. So like, you're preaching to the choir here for guys that we want to do one thing, but they're actually a different player.
Yeah.
And Halliburton's almost like a victim of his own success in this postseason because he is like the most clutch player ever. And so it's like, okay, if you're going to be the guy that takes the last shot, maybe you should be the guy that takes the first shot the rest of the game. You know what I'm saying? So I guess my question for you regarding Halliburton is, I'm of the opinion, and history backs me up all the way, if you look all the way back to the Pistons, is that you've got to have like a top 10 player on your team you have to have an alpha. And this Pistons team just doesn't have an alpha. And I love that about them. They're different. They don't have an alpha in terms of like a 30-point per game scorer. But do you think Halliburton needs to turn into that to really get over the hump against this dominant Thunder team? Or do you think that the sum is better than the parts here can really win a championship against this Oklahoma City team?
I don't think he needs to get to 30 points a game. That's just not really who he is. I mean, he's broke 30 points a handful of times throughout his career. Like, I'm not going to say he hasn't, but like, that's asking a lot when you're looking at a great defensive team like this from OKC. If he can get over 20 points a game and put up his assist numbers like we're used to seeing,
just
close
raise
to double
his floor,
digits,
I guess is what I'm saying.
I just think that he's got to be better, right? Like, I feel like he's been pretty, suspect the first 2 games against OKC. I think if you look back at his Pacers career, OKC has been the team that's held him to the fewest field goal attempts throughout the regular season as well. They have a great defense, and Lou Dort is probably one of the toughest guys to score on, as you guys can attest to. And then you throw in Alex Caruso, who gave him so many fits when he was with the Bulls. And then you throw in a Cason Wallace and SGA and J-Dub and all these different bodies that
They've
can
got
throw
a lot
at
of
you.
weapons.
They're ridiculous defensively. And the Pacers,
We hate them.
I felt like at the end of the fourth quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, they did find ways to get him going, but I don't think OKC really had their foot pushed down on the gas trying to keep him out of the game. But I think at home, maybe he'll find something. Obviously, we do know he is dealing with some type of injury as he limped off the post-game media press conference. He kind of limped off the stage, and he said that he has like a leg injury or an ankle injury, something like that, but nothing that's going to keep him out. So I don't expect that to be a reason that he's like not playing well. I just think they're a very physical defensive team, and the Pacers got to find better ways to get him open. And Rick Carlisle has done that. Now, if you guys want to go back to the Pacers-Grizzlies games from this regular season, Jalen Wells was smothering him in the first matchup. Pacers were without Nembhard to start. I think he came off the bench. That was his first game back, and he like dominated off the bench. And everyone's like, "Oh man, the Pacers were up like 25, I think, in the first quarter." And then Memphis came back and just smoked him.
Yeah,
and everyone's like, "What happened?"
That was
Jalen
Jalen's breakout game.
That was December. That was his coming out party.
He was face guarding Halliburton at half court. And what the Pacers do? They said, "Okay, we're going to play 4-on-4. If you're going to do that to Halliburton, we're just going to take him out of the game." Well, Then you come back after the All-Star break, and Memphis and Indiana face each other again in Indianapolis. The Pacers brought in a coach from the WNBA, an assistant coach that worked over in Germany, I believe it was, on how to set screens at different angles to get Halliburton free when he's being face guarded like that, because they knew how good the Grizzlies had done it, how good of a job the Grizzlies had done with Jalen Wells guarding him. And so if you go back and watch the game, man, they were making Jalen Wells work. Like, they were putting him through so many different screens to get Halliburton free, and it worked. And so obviously OKC is a totally different team in how they're guarding, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers try to do more type of off-ball things to get him going offensively. We kind of saw that a little bit in the fourth quarter, where they were trying to get him with some pitches versus like pick and roll situations, right? Don't have him with the ball in his hands to start out. Have him going downhill, then catching the ball and seeing if he can kind of catch them off guard a little bit while he's already moving. So, it's tough because Halliburton is such a gifted player, but, he's not very strong. And I think people forget that. Like, they're like, oh, he needs to drive to the basket more. It's like, he's not Jalen Brunson. He's not Anthony Edwards. He's not these big, bulky guys that are just going to absorb all this contact. This is a skinny dude. And he's even said that. He's like, I'm kind of built like Reggie Miller. I'm not a guy that wants to play through a ton of contact. That's just not me. And he really can't. He can't initiate contact like that. So he's got more of a finesse game to him. And I think he maybe just needs to dive in a little bit more to the pull-up two and maybe some floaters instead of going all the way into the teeth of the defense, where OKC can just collapse you like crazy at the paint or at the rim in the paint. So yeah, this is not an easy task. It's a super tall task for the Pacers and Halliburton, but challenge accepted, right?
Yeah, it's a great professional segue. Well done, sir. As we come into we're starting to wrap this up. We are the $2 Sports Show live here on your lunch break at 11 a.m. Central. Alex, the Pacers can win this series what needs to happen for the Pacers to close this thing out against Oklahoma City?
Well, if OKC's offense can kind of go quiet, which we've seen that happen on the road, right? Like, this is a team, I think their biggest road victory is 6 points. They're 4-3 on the road. And
They were
Indiana's
down by 26 to the Grizzlies.
They came back
and Ja got hurt. But was the game that Lou Dort took out Ja.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people. I've been seeing Pacer fans say Lou Dort takes out every other opposing team's best player. He needs to be.
He does.
He needs to be traded to the Wizards for that. But no, I mean, honestly, I think if Indiana's offense can get going a little bit, because their offense has been pretty stagnant. They've only led for 2 minutes of the 96 minutes they played in the first two games. Somehow they escape OKC with the victory. I think Game 3 might be the most important game in Pacers history in terms of the 21st century, at least. Just because if they can win Game 3 and put some pressure on OKC, I've been kind of laughing at some of the national media. They're like, man, if OKC wins Game 2 or Game 3, man, they're going to be smelling blood for Game 4. It's like, well, what do you think Indiana's going to be doing if they win Game 3? Are they going to be smelling blood for Game 4? I think the same thing can be said for Indiana, because I think really if Indiana wants to win the series, they have to win both games at home. And if they don't, they go back to OKC in a 3-game series where it's 2 in OKC, 1 in Indiana. I just don't see it happening. OKC has only lost 2 games all season long in the playoffs at home. And those were on buzzer beaters from Aaron Gordon and Tyrese Halliburton. So they're pretty freaking dominant at home.
Yeah.
So
I said that same thing on our last show. It's like, I feel like Indiana needs both, because a 3-game series in which 2 of them's played in Oklahoma City, it's a pretty tall task. All right. We've got your opinion on the Pacers. Are you a Colts guy? We're big football guys. You a big Colts guy?
I would say I was a bigger Colts guy a couple of years ago, but I've kind of grown sour of the Chris Ballard era, Anthony Richardson era.
Oh, not a big fan of Anthony Richardson.
I mean, here's the thing.
He's trash. You're okay.
I'm a Titans fan, so you're. I love this. Yeah. Come on.
I want him to do well. I just don't really see it. I never really saw it when they drafted him either. I'm like, this guy's super athletic, but what do I know? I was a big Will Levis guy coming into the draft, so.
Listen, there's a show where we did a pre-draft show where I dogged Will Levis and said whatever team takes him is the most foolish team in the NFL, only for the Titans to turn around 2 days later and draft him.
But you know why I'm not a big Will Levis guy, and it's because he drinks mayonnaise in his coffee.
I mean, I think that's what I like about him. He beats to his own drum.
Okay, so that's but this is mayonnaise and coffee we're talking about.
Hey,
that's a whole nother level.
Let's get weird, okay?
If I was president of the United States, I would take all the mayonnaise in the world and the recipe and shoot it to the moon. Like, I don't
Have you tried
I don't want any part of it. No, it's awful. It's like
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
white Jello that tastes bad. Like
Have you tried mayonnaise in your coffee?
no.
You can't say it's gross if you haven't tried it yet.
Yes,
Listen, he won't even eat it on a sandwich. He won't even be in the same room
Oh,
as
see,
mayonnaise.
I like
bro. I'm
mayonnaise
telling
on a
you, man.
sandwich.
I do too.
See,
I love it. Like are you
I'm being on
hang on?
this
Are you a
early.
Dukes? Are you a Dukes or a Blue Plate man?
I don't really care mayonnaise wise. I like
That's
Dukes.
fair.
I've had Dukes before.
Mhm. I'm a
Um,
Blue Plate guy here in the South. Blue Plate is what it is. I lived on the Carolina coast for a while. It's a big Dukes country. You can't say anything about Dukes at all over there, or they will run you out of town on a rail. And so I'm kind of like you. Like I'm fine either way, but like don't put it in my coffee. That should have been warning flag number one that this guy cannot be trusted with the keys to your franchise. He doesn't even know what goes in freaking coffee.
It got him a nice advertisement with some mayonnaise companies. So hey, I mean he's got to make money somehow
He'll be
because
the
he's not a
biggest
good football
payday he's
player.
going to get in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, man.
yeah.
So
all right.
Alex,
Hey,
listen, man, thanks for being here. We appreciate it, man. We've taken enough of your time tonight. Thank you so much. I apologize. We're normally a professional show. My Wi-Fi played out in the middle of it. It is what it is. But tell the good people here at Bluff City Media and those watching online where they can find you. I've got your usernames here, but tell them about your Substack, your podcast, and where to find you.
Yeah, well, if we're going to talk about being professional, you guys asked me to come on this show a couple days ago. I said, yeah, no problem. 8:30, I'll be there. And it's 8:45, and you said, hey, you still coming on? We're waiting on you in the studio. And I said,
we were
about
gonna
that,
protect
my
you.
bad.
We
I
were gonna
totally
protect
spaced it. And I told you guys before we got on here, I accidentally knocked a shelf down in my bathroom, and it had a candle on it. So then I had to go clean all that up before I got on. So, if we're talking about being unprofessional, the Wi-Fi thing happens. Forgetting that you scheduled yourself to do something, that's just not okay. So anyway, at Alex Golden NBA, if you want to find me on Twitter. I'm usually not complaining about the refs, but when I do, it somehow blows up and gets like 6,000 likes. And I got OKC fans and Knicks fans, all my mentions, getting mad at me for complaining about officiating. Because Knicks fans are still coping with the fact that they lost to the Pacers. Again, haven't beat the Pacers since 1999 in the NBA
There's
playoffs.
nothing
So,
worse than the coastal elites.
yeah, I mean, they suck. But
Middle America, baby.
Midwest, baby, we're here to represent. And that's what this NBA Finals is. It's the flyover finals, right? But if you guys want to check out the coverage, setting the paces to play go. The Substack has not really been something I've done the whole year. So if you want to read old articles from last season, hey, knock yourself out. It's free. But I do not have time to write with us doing a daily podcast plus working a full-time job. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk with you guys. I enjoyed the conversation. And, I think for the $2, you guys got to try the coffee with mayo on air. You can't just talk about how bad it is.
I will not. I will not.
Drew, he will
How
literally
much would it
combust.
take you to do it? Like $100?
No, it would have to be. Yeah, it'd have to be more.
You wouldn't do it for $100?
For $100, Drew, you got 4 kids running around there, man. For $100,
Listen, I have the leverage here. I will find your limit before you find mine. Okay, keep going up.
125.
Okay, you're not going up quick enough. This isn't gonna happen.
126? I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna.
Again,
Man,
Alex,
man,
thank you,
man,
man.
man.
We appreciate you being here. Thanks for your time. Again, check him out. Pacers Pod, STP, Alex Golden, NBA. Great conversation today, buddy. Best of luck to the Pacers. If the Pacers win, we got to have you back on so you can take a picture lap and gloat here on our network, man. But again, thank you. Appreciate you being here, Alex. We're going to talk college baseball on the other side as we wrap up your Wednesday show. Welcome back to the $2 Sports Show. What a great interview with Alex Golden. Now, Alex is there. He is at the field house today, going to the game tonight. Super excited for him and the Pacers tonight. Like, it's a must-win situation for the Pacers. Like, if they don't win tonight, like we talked about, it's going to be hard to overcome. But we are all Pacers fans, especially after Alex coming in and hanging out with us and putting up with us our buffoonery last night for about 30 minutes. But before I let you go, I would be remiss that I talk about my favorite sport, my favorite time of the year. That's the College World Series, the baseball tournament that's happening in Omaha this weekend. You've got 2 games on Friday, a rematch of the 2016 National Championship that saw a mid-major Coastal Carolina upset the Arizona Wildcats to win their first ever national championship in program history. And they're back in Omaha again. Second-year head coach. It's just an easy dude to root for. The Shots come in on a 24-game winning streak. It's the longest in the nation. They dominated the Conway Regional. They went to Auburn and won in extras and then just beat the brakes off of Auburn in the second game.
against an Arizona team that upset North Carolina in the Supers. They played at Chapel Hill. North Carolina won the opening game 19-2, only for Arizona to come back and win the next two and make a trip to Omaha. On that half of the bracket, that game's Friday at 2. The other Friday game that's on that half of the bracket faces two perennial Omaha regulars as well, between the Louisville Cardinals and the Oregon State Beavers. The Beavers have won multiple national championships, not one since 2018, where they upset Arkansas, who's on the other side of the bracket. Love that with some tomfoolery. Anytime Arkansas gets beat, it's a good day by me. But the Cardinals and the Beavers faced off Friday night. I look for Oregon State to win that one and get ahead in the winner's bracket, as they're the better, more talented team, and also a hot baseball team coming out of their own regional and super, where they upset Florida State. On the other half of the bracket, you always have a mid-major Cinderella, right? We've got a powerhouse in Coastal Carolina who goes to Omaha or hosts regionals and supers fairly regularly. But on the other half, you've got the Murray State Racers of Ja Morant fame facing the UCLA Bruins, who upset my Bulldogs in the 2013 College World Series National Championship Series. The Racers are a fun story. They haven't been to Omaha haven't been in the college baseball tournament, the regional, since 1979. They won their first ever regional game by upsetting Uncle Buck's Ole Miss Rebels, which, chef's kiss, Racers up, go Racers, whatever. I'm a Racer for life now after that. They face a blue blood UCLA team who has a dominant pitching staff. And when you get to this time of the year, that's what matters. The Racers are a fun story, but that's going to be a hard uphill battle for Murray State. I'm rooting for them, but UCLA is clearly the better team. And then finally, they pitted the two SEC teams to make Omaha, LSU and Arkansas, together. They face off Saturday night at 7 o'clock. I saw a tweet just before coming on air that said somebody asked for their prediction, and they said alcohol 10,000, sobriety 0. This game is going to be an awesome just pitching duel of two great baseball teams. I look for the winner of this one to take control of this half of the bracket. My prediction is a Coastal Carolina and LSU final series, which would be great baseball. You know, you've got the blue blood Goliath in LSU, the mid-major David of Coastal Carolina, and I'm all in on it, man. Shant's up. When I lived on the coast, I did some teaching and worked with the Coastal Carolina exercise science program. So I feel like by extension, I got to root for Coastal Carolina. So Shant's up, baby. I'm predicting Coastal Carolina to come out of the Friday half and LSU out of the Saturday half. But that's going to do it for our show today. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for tuning in. As we said, y'all like, subscribe, turn those notifications on. We are here Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. sharp on your lunch break, getting you ready for the sports day. We'll be back here Friday at 11 to hang out again. Come hang out with us as we talk more NBA. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a Pacers victory tonight over the Thunder for Alex and his guys. But until then, y'all go be a friend to somebody who needs a friend, and we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Two Buck Sports Show. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page, like this video, and leave a comment. We will see you back here in a few days.